Welcome back to the Nomad Hedge, everybody. It's been a volatile week, but also a very interesting week. We're going to recap this week and have a look at the S&P 500 and take a look at the crypto markets such as Bitcoin and Ethereum. We're also going to take a look at the US dollar and some stocks that are looking very attractive. So if this is your first time here, consider liking and subscribing, and let's get into the video. Let's begin by taking a look at the S&P 500, and as we can see here, we are progressing towards wave 5 of minute degree. And so we had this huge bounce here from this POC line here, so we're just waiting for a confirmation above this all-time highs, and that should progress us towards wave 5. Now, if we take a look at some of the indicators here, the reason why I believe this is wave 3 is due to the fact of the momentum. So you can see from this elite wave oscillator, and you also have the Arun indicator suggesting the pullback here is typical for a wave 3 setup. We also have the money flow indicator indicating that it's the highest spike basically within this indicator. And so the only difference here is that the RSI shows the highest momentum right here instead of right here. So typically you do want to see the RSI at the highest point where wave 3 ends, but you also have to factor in some other indicators. And when more indicators suggest it otherwise, you have to trust that more. Either way, as long as we are above the 21 EMA and the 8 EMA, we should get a better and clearer picture as time progresses. And so we're looking for now the last wave to conclude, and therefore after that last wave we should begin to see a correction which would correct basically this entire move here from April lows, and we could perhaps see a scenario where we basically just retest the former highs back here. So we could see something along the line of this, and then we could see another impulsive wave towards new all-time highs again. So we're watching the S&P 500 on a daily basis, and this is showing us pretty good upside move here. It's been a strong impulse move here, and we can see that we have fractal waves here as well, suggesting that every wave has sub waves as well, and that's just an indication this is a very strong bull market that we're witnessing right now. And so we're going to have a look at the Bitcoin and take a look at the crypto markets and see how that's connecting to the S&P 500, and if we can find some clues where the wave count looks over there. Let's take a look at the chart of Bitcoin, and as we can see here, we have potentially concluded wave 5. However, I am open to the idea that this could have been wave 5 instead of wave 3, and that we have started a 1-2 wave, and that what we're looking at here is a potential new subwave here. So we're looking at a setup of something along the line of this. So 1-2, 1-2, and that's a very, very bullish, impulsive elliott wave count if that would be the case. However, we can see here that Bitcoin has not broken above new all-time highs, and that this correction here could be a conclusion here of an ABC type of correction. However, it could also be a potential double correction, meaning we have a DXY, and we could see Bitcoin actually gravitate towards this area here where we do have the POC line, the anchored VWAP, and the 233 EMA. When we look at Bitcoin here and we saw the S&P 500, the S&P 500 is sort of like progressing toward that wave 5 area. And if we have a look at Ethereum, you're probably going to understand more what I mean. We can see here that Ethereum has started a 1, 2, 3, 4 wave count here. So we're basically waiting for Ethereum to reach wave 5. What that means is that Ethereum is catching up to Bitcoin at this point. And if we go back to Bitcoin, we can see that we're already within wave 5 potentially, and that we have not reached new all-time highs yet. And so we could be in this mode here that we're just correcting, waiting for Ethereum to reach wave 5. That's when the correction begins. And so again, we're looking for a type of double correction here. We can see if we zoom in a little bit that this upside move here looks corrective as well. Now it looks impulsive obviously, but you can see the narrow shape of this elliott wave count here, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, potentially reaching that resistance line at the value area highs of the volume profile. Now we could switch over to a 30-minute chart, and let me just expand this one. So we're looking for basically a corrective upside move here, and bang, that's the POC line, which could act as resistance, and we basically have wave 5 right there. And what this basically means is that we could see conclusion of a W, and then we have the X here, and then we could have Y anywhere here. So don't be surprised to see Bitcoin starting to correct from this level. Again, that means if we are concluding wave 5, and that Ethereum is just catching up to wave 5, and that at some point it will find resistance as well. But in any shape or form, we are bullish bullish long term, and a corrective move towards the downside at some point when it finds support is a buy in our opinion. It all depends where you bought Bitcoin, right? So we have been adding on ever since this bull market started here back in 2022. So it's basically been after each subway after subway, there's been buying point here. We reached lows here, we bought again, and then we bought again. And so basically we're just waiting for that type of pullback here to add more to our positions. And so that's how we view Bitcoin, the S&P 500. And to give us more clues if a correction is actually coming, we're going to have to take a look at the US dollar, and we're going to take a look at DXY and see how the price action looks over there. So let's switch over and have a look at the DXY. And just to provide you with a big picture view, we're going to have a look at the dollar index here on a monthly chart. And we can see that the US dollar has reacted or bounced above this POC line here. So this has been a key level. It has sort of like acted as resistance here previous times as well as back here. And so this is basically an uptrend here that started back in 2008. And eventually we do believe that this cycle here, this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is going to conclude, and it's going to likely conclude with a break of trend here that began back in 2011. So this higher low trend line here, we're going to likely see this one broken down, and eventually we're going to find support. But right now we are bouncing off this area here, and so what we're looking at is basically an ABC correction that's going to play out. Obviously it could also be a double correction, but because the US dollar has now fallen for a couple of months now, we're likely going to see a bounce up. In other terms, we call that a technical bounce or a corrective upside bounce before the next downside move begins. And so we're going to switch over to a weekly chart, and we can see that we are very oversold here to support the thesis that an upside correction is likely going to happen. And we can see that the dollar index has been oversold here, and the other metrics here, the MACD for instance, has also been pretty much exhausted here towards the downside, and we have now printed a buy signal here for the MACD. The money flow indicator has also been very suppressed here, and we're also seeing all kinds of indicators here that shows a scenario where we can see a technical or a corrective upside move. And that basically means that the dollar index, it's moving in inverse to the US financial markets, meaning that when the dollar falls, it's typically better for assets in general. And so we're talking about growth stocks, we're looking at Bitcoin for that matter. This bull market has been supported thanks to a decline of the US dollar, and that's also allowed for more liquidity in the system. And so what we're looking for here on a daily chart is that the correction that began here for the dollar back in January 2025 has likely ended wave 5 here of a minute degree. Just like the S&P 500 is approaching that level, we look at Bitcoin as well. And so for this downside move here to continue further decline, we have to see an upside correction. And so if we take a look at the dollar index, let me just zoom in here and expand this one here. We can see that the dollar has reacted from this POC line here, and it's moving lower. Now, either this one is going to continue to move lower and we're eventually going to see a break of trend here, or we could see a impulse here where this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we could likely see the dollar index moving towards this 233 level, which also aligns with the anchored VWAP from the top right here. And so this is a clear resistance line, and there's obviously a possibility for the dollar to bounce here. And so we're watching this level here, the anchored VWAP. It looks as if we're trying to get above that thing, and we also above this fib retracement of 0.618. So if we're starting to see or find support here, don't be surprised to see markets in general beginning to decline, and that we could see a correction in the major indices and crypto markets as well. And so that is why we look at the dollar here, and we have not yet had a confirmation that the dollar will be moving lower. The only thing that we're seeing right now is that we are trading below the 55 EMA on a daily chart, and that we are above the 1 standard deviation below this anchored VWAP, which also fits into this 0.618 level. And so this is basically what's going to determine the outlook or the trend of the markets. So if we're starting to move down here for the DXY, expect markets to continue moving upward. If not, the markets will likely see a correction, and that we could see markets beginning to decline and eventually find some support until we're finding resistance here for the dollar. And so that's why we're watching the dollar very closely here. This is a pivot point in our opinion, and we're likely going to find out in the next couple of days, maybe next week. That's going to confirm whether the dollar is going to move higher or move lower. So with that said, let's have a look at 4 stocks that are looking good from a technical standpoint, regardless of the outlook of the general markets. The first stock we're going to take a look at is Visa, and as we can see here, Visa has successfully found temporarily support here at the 233 EMA. Now, mind you, this could either be an W correction or it could be an ABC correction as well, and we can see the last wave move something along the line of this, and we can see that I've pointed out the 100% extension, which is where typically wave C concludes. So we could see a break of the 233 EMA here, just get a shakeout and then bounce from that level, and obviously this would be your ultimate stop. And so we can see here that Visa has printed a very oversold RSI reading, and we can see that let me zoom back down here, that the MACD is also curling a little bit higher and starting to print an early buy signal, and which is why we believe Visa is looking pretty attractive here from a very good risk reward standpoint, with the fact that the stop could be right there. So this is a good stock to take a look at. And next up, we're also going to have a look at CRM or Salesforce. We can see that Salesforce has had a huge correction here, and if we back out a little bit here and see how Salesforce has developed on a weekly chart, we can see that the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 concluded right here, and we're basically down towards this level here where we have concluded the ABC correction here, bounced off this 233 EMA, which has acted as support previously. Now, if we go back to a daily chart, we can see here that this minute degree here has also corrected down to wave C, which is where you typically see the conclusion of wave C at the 100% extension, and this is where Salesforce is currently at. And if one were to buy Salesforce right here, the ultimate stop would be right there. So this is why we like buying very low, and this risk reward here is pretty good. This is why we like buying low with a stop right there, and the fact that this one could bounce up from this level, the upside reward is in fact very good. If it would just break all-time highs, that's a 55% gain from current levels. And so that's why we believe Salesforce is looking attractive. You can also take a look at some of the indicators here. You can see that the RSI is also very oversold here on a daily chart right there, and we're seeing also the MACD here below the center line. And if I were to zoom in a little bit more, which I can't, but the signal line is starting to curl up a little bit there, so that could be an indication that a buy signal is coming, or an early buy signal is coming, I should rather say. So that's how Salesforce is looking. We think that the stock offers very good risk reward. If we're to break below this wave 2 here, obviously the correction could ensue back down here to the POC line, and maybe the catalyst here would be the earnings report, and that could force the stock to move higher from there. So this is why we like Salesforce, and for that, let's move on to another stock with the ticker symbol ACMR. So the next stock on the list is ACM Research. This is a technology stock, and we can see here that it had a pretty hefty downside move here. However, it found support at the 233 EMA, lining up with the POC line here as well, and on top of that, you also have the anchored VWAP from wave 2. So this could also offer a very good risk reward. However, be careful that wave 2 here, from the current price level down to wave 2, that's a 44 point almost 45% downside move. So you want to be a little bit careful here with your stop levels. Maybe this one level here could be a better way out in case the stock would move lower. So this is typically an area where price finds support, and so if we would bounce back here to a weekly chart, we can basically see that this stock here has not broken above new all-time highs, so it would have to struggle through here and move and move above the wave 1 here, primary degree, and then get above that cycle degree as well. So this is a huge possibility, because basically the stock has been, you know, printing higher highs here, and that's a bullish setup in our opinion. And the 55 EMA on a weekly chart looks to have also been an area of support here for wave 2 of minute degree to conclude. So we think the stock is looking actually pretty attractive here, and that you just have to be a little bit careful where you put your stop level. And again, if we zoom in here, we can take a look at some of the indicators. We can see here that the RSI is pretty oversold here, and we can move down and see that the money flow indicator is also heavily oversold at these levels. So this is why we like ACMR. So this is why we like ACMR at current price levels. And for that, let's have a look at a healthcare stock called Merck, or MRCK. The last stock we're going to have a look at is Merck. This is a healthcare stock, and if we take a look at some of the indicators to begin with, we can see that the RSI is fairly oversold here. We can also see that the MACD is starting to curl up here from very oversold readings, as well as the money flow indicator at its lowest point. So these are indications that the stock has likely bottomed from these levels. It's bouncing up from this value area highs, just a tad above that 233 EMA, and also this line here, which is the standard deviation from the anchored VWAP, and that suggests that just a tad above that wave 4 is typically where you see the conclusion of a correction. Now, if we take a look at the stock here on a daily chart, if we zoom in a little bit, we can see that we had concluded a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 structure, and that we are likely going to begin a new minute degree of wave 1, 2, and we can see that the price has also bounced above and staying above that POC line right here. So basically we just want to get above this 55 EMA, and that means buying the breakout here and maybe a stop just a tad below that price level could offer a great risk reward. You can see also that the anchored VWAP here price is currently trading above that level. So these are the kind of setups that we like, and we do believe that the upside potential here is massive. If Merck were to actually break toward new all-time highs, we're looking at almost 70% gain from current price levels. Not bad at all. We take a look at this stock here from a weekly chart. We can see that it also looks like it wants to start a new impulse here towards the upside. So the risk here, basically, if we fall below this level here, and that is why setting this stop loss pretty tight at around this level here would protect you from further downside here. Merck is also very valuable when it comes to its fundamentals, and it's also oversold on a technical basis as well. So that was pretty much it for today's video. We've been looking at a few stocks, the S&P 500, Bitcoin, and the US dollar, to see where the market could be headed in the next couple of days. And so we're going to end this video right here, right now. If you haven't already, consider liking and subscribing. I'll see you guys in the next video. Have a great weekend.